Again, thank you for joining the YouTube channel and watching these videos. I'm Christian Posta from solo.io, and we're covering Service Mesh Hub. In the previous two videos, we saw how to discover meshes and workload items inside those meshes. And we also saw how to unify their trust domains so that services can call each other and validate each other's identity using the same trust domain, root trust. And in this video, what we're going to take a look at is, now that we have this virtual mesh concept and we can treat multiple installations of a service mesh as a single mesh, how can we write policies like access control policies and network routing policies against this one unified mesh? All right, so Service Mesh Hub has a higher level multi-cluster API for driving these various individual discrete service meshes. Hence, Service Mesh Hub is a management plane for these different control planes. So let's take a look at this functionality. So the first thing we're going to do is port forward to our product page. So we're following the book info demo from the Istio repo. And in the previous demos we showed we had some of the components of book info deployed onto cluster 1, specifically product page details reviews 1 and reviews 2. On cluster 2 we have reviews 3. All right. So if we come to the browser here and we go to localhost 9080, or yeah, 9080. We can click here and we see, and we refresh a couple times, we see that it will load balance between version 1 and version 2 of reviews, and that's fine. So what we want to do here is enable access policy on the virtual mesh. In the first iteration, we had this set to false, but here we're going to set it to true. We're going to leave everything else the same: the number of meshes that have been grouped, the federation mode, shared identity, and the built-in certificate authority generation that we used for generating the root CA. But we'll enable the enforce access control flag. So let's apply that. Now, by default with Istio, when we enable the authorization policies in Istio, so that's what's happening under the covers, it is a default deny all. So once this has been created, then we come over here and refresh. Product page should not be able to call into details and product reviews, book reviews. And we see that we are getting some requests blocked, and it does take a little bit of patience until it finally settles in Istio. Now we see that on successive refreshes that indeed we cannot reach product details and product review. So that's the default. So now let's look at the authorization policies that were created under the covers. We can see a global access control was created. And if we take a look at this, we can just see that this is the default empty spec, which means block everything. So this blocks everything trying to communicate in the mesh, whether that's in cluster 1 or cluster 2, right? So, like I said, the authorization policy and what we'll see in the next video, network policy, these consider the entire mesh through the virtual mesh definition that we have. So now let's enable some traffic. Let's take a look at this access control policy that manages control over multiple clusters. In this case, the spec generally follows a source and destination. So you can select multiple different sources using labels and namespaces, as well as multiple different destinations, which would be services, following the same patterns, right? So you can treat multiple different workloads at the same time with a single access control policy. So in this case, what we're saying is, for the product page service account running on cluster 1, that can talk to anything running in the default namespace, regardless of what cluster it lives in. So let's apply this product page policy. Okay, so again, just like we saw with how it became enabled, we should see some jitter. It should take a little bit for it to come back alive. And when it does come back alive, we can see that book details, that comes in, reviews v2 tries to call out to ratings, and we can see that we can't call ratings. We still have our access control set to deny all. All we've said was that product page can talk to anything in the default, but it didn't, in the default namespace, it didn't say anything about those services talking to anything. All right, so let's also take a look at the access policy so that reviews running in cluster 1 can talk to ratings, which might be running in any cluster on at the default namespace. So let's apply that. And give this a refresh. Now for reviews, we should start to see stars, right? So when we call into reviews and it gets to reviews v2, that will call ratings, and we do get the stars as we expected. So this access control policy is, like I said, a virtual mesh aware policy, and kind of simplifies the mechanics of managing multiple different sources and destinations and writing a single unified policy for all of them. So that's it for this video. In the next video, what we'll take a look at is traffic routing and using a similar traffic policy for managing traffic between clusters and between services from the perspective of a single unified virtual mesh. Stay tuned.